all of that, Jerusalem is actually very complicated to follow throughout time. Every year or every couple of years, something happens, which makes it very interesting, but very complicated to understand. So what we'll do, we'll try and go through the history of time. I'll soon explain how much back we'll go. We'll try and follow the history of Jerusalem through different periods, through different times, from the beginning until today. And we'll go up through what happened. I won't talk about everything, obviously. We only have an hour and a half. We don't have 2-3 years to go through history. First of all, we don't know everything about Jerusalem. As you'll see, we're still doing excavations, and we still need to find out things, and we don't know everything. What we do know is to understand the history and to understand also the connection. We know that Jerusalem is holy for the three monotheistic religions. I'll talk mainly about the history of the Judaism and the connection between Judaism and Jerusalem. But to understand the meaning and to understand why Jerusalem is so important for all the three monotheistic religions, we have to go back a few years. We have to go back 5,777 years. According to the Jewish tradition, the world was founded then, almost 6,000 years ago. And the whole world was founded from one place. That place is called the Foundation Stone. Have you heard of the Foundation Stone? Okay, the Foundation Stone is placed on top of a mountain that we know as Mount Moriah. Foundation Stone where the world was founded from, according to the three of the religions. And 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, our father Abraham came here with his son Isaac. And 3,000 years ago, King David arrived to the area of Mount Moriah is the area of Jerusalem, and he built his city to the south of Mount Moriah, what we know today as the city of David. And if you visited the city of David? Yes. And if not, that's also an excellent place to visit if you need suggestions of what to do in Jerusalem. But the city of David, that's actually the old city of Jerusalem. And King David's son, King Solomon, built the Jewish temple. In those days, it was called the Solomon's Temple. We call it today the First Temple because we know our history, and I'll soon explain why. But the first temple of King Solomon was very nice, big, it wasn't made out of gold, it wasn't like we think of like Taj Mahal of temples today, which are very beautiful. But the Jewish temple was very simple, very modest, very nice. It was calm, but everything was made out of stone. And it was one building, it had a courtyard, but the main building had 2 rooms. The main room is called the Holy. In Hebrew, we call it Kodesh. And the back room, the small room, was the Holy of Holies. Known in Hebrew, we call it Kodesh HaKodeshim. In the back room, we had the foundation stone. And on top of the foundation stone, we had the ark. Now we know that most of the people were actually not allowed inside the temple. We know the Jews and non-Jews, actually in those days it was the Israelites and non-Israelites came to the area of the temple to pay their respects. But only a small group of Israelites, the priests, they were the only ones who were allowed inside the temple, and they would work in the temple. They would sacrifice, they would pray, and all the other people would just stand outside. Unfortunately, in the year -586, the Babylonians came to Jerusalem, they captured the area, they destroyed our temple, and we found ourselves outside of the area. That was the Babylonian exile. We were forced out to the east, to the area of the Grand Rapids today. A couple of tens of Israelites and Judean people were allowed to stay in the area, but most of the Israelites were forced out. Fast forward 50 years. In those 50 years, in the meantime, the Babylonian Empire lost their power and came the Persians. During the Persian time, we have the history of Purim. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Purim, the book of Esther, with the story of Haman and Hashmonath. That was during the Babylonian exile. And a couple of years after the story occurred, the Persian emperor allowed the Jews, or the Judean people, to return back to Israel, to Jerusalem, to build the temple. It took them close to 20 years to build the temple, but on the whole, 70 years after the destruction of the first temple, the second temple was built, which is not such a long time. It's a generation, maybe 2 generations, The split was very important for the Judean people. And the group that returned back to Jerusalem, not everybody returned, but the group that returned, the first people were the pioneers of Zion. And after that also came, the most famous people from that generation are Ezra and Nehemiah from the book. They both have books in the Bible. And they lived through that time. And the second temple was built. It was a very important occurrence that happened during that time. And again, I'm jumping a few years. Jumping from the Persian time, after the Persians came the Greeks. The Greeks, first we had good relations with them, after that we didn't have good relations with them, and we rebelled against the Greeks. Thus was the rebellion of the Maccabees, the Hasmonean family, which just celebrated Hanukkah, the festival of lights. That was to mark that we won against the battle against the Greeks. The Greeks tried to destroy our temple; they didn't succeed. We won, and we had a independence area. The Judean area, the area of Jerusalem and the suburbs, it's the Judea region, that was ruled by the Hasmonean family. We had independence here. The Hasmonean family were a family of priests, they were also the leaders during that time, and they led. And after a few years, they ruled here for 100, 150 years, approximately 5 generations, and the Romans came. I jumped now to the 2nd century, 1st century before Christ. The Romans came to the area of Judea. First we had good relations with them, everything was well, everything, but it was okay. And they nominated King Herod to be the ruler in Jerusalem. King Herod decided to renovate and expand the temple and the platform of Temple Mount. He had many different reasons, but he decided to do that. But he had a little tiny teeny problem called topography. If you look at the topography of Jerusalem, you will see that Mount Moriah has another mountain to its north, valleys to the west and the east, and another sort of mountain to the south. What do you think King Herod did? He just changed the nature around. He quarried the mountain in the north. He filled the debris, took the debris from here, filled the valleys to the west and to the east and to the west with the Bean arches, and he built a very large platform that we know until today as the platform of Temple Mount. And if you've been on Temple Mount, this is the platform you walked on, the platform that King Herod built 2,000 years ago. And as he did that, he didn't build, but he renovated the second temple. And as you can see here behind, you can see the very large platform that he built, and you can see the southern wall. That was the main entrance to Temple Mount, essentially. The eastern wall, the northern wall, and the western wall. Exactly. Is this the same western wall that we see outside? It is. However, what we see outside, first of all, outside we actually see the renovation of the western wall. We don't see the original western wall, as we'll see it inside. Soon I'll explain what happened. And we also see an eighth of the original wall. We see only this part outside. This part is undergoing the excavation. So on the whole, we can see this area. This is the platform outside. What happened to the rest of the western wall? That's what I'll discuss. That's what we'll talk about. So you can see this is the area of the original Mount Moriah. And you can see the renovation that King Herod did. We have the Holy of Holies, and we see another interesting thing here. Is the western wall part of the temple? No, it's not. The western wall is not part of the actual temple like a lot of people think, but it's part of the area that supports the platform that supported the Temple Mount. So we ask ourselves, if the western wall is not part of the actual temple, why is it so holy for us? Why is it so special for the Jews? There is a reason. I'll mention it later. As you can see, King Herod built a magnificent, beautiful temple, again, made out of stone, no gold, nothing like that. It isn't allowed in Judaism. And we know that the platform of Temple Mount, even more so, was the center of the Jewish life. Anybody who needed to discuss politics came to Jerusalem. Anybody who needed to speak with a leader came to Jerusalem. Anybody who needed the Supreme Court was here. So anybody who needed a judge or something came to Jerusalem. It was also an area for a lot of artists to come. All of that was in Jerusalem. Unfortunately, 70 years only after King Herod finished, actually, after King Herod passed away and finished all the excavation and the renovation, in the year 70, the Jews rebelled against the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed our temple, and we found ourselves again outside of Jerusalem. This time the Jews were scattered all over Israel. The center of the Jewish life moved from Jerusalem down south, afterwards up north, and afterwards actually to Europe and North Africa. From here, we started the area that we call the exile of 2,000 years. After the destruction, the Jews weren't allowed to stay in Jerusalem. They moved. A lot were taken in captivity to Rome. A lot fled to the area of North Africa, to Europe, Asia, Middle East. And that's how Jews ended up in all sorts of different places. We had a Jewish community that stayed in the area of Israel, but it was smaller. And the Jewish life, the center of the Jewish life was no longer in Israel, but moved from place to place. What happened in Jerusalem in the meantime? Jerusalem remained in the hands of the Romans. After them came the Byzantines, the Christians.